So we are about to begin a journey of 4 parashiot that take us throughout the life of Yosef HaTzadik. That's how he's called by our Chachamim. That's the title that he received. You know, imagine somebody that is going through challenges in life, through difficult things, but you know that at the end of it, at the end of the journey, you're going to be remembered forever as the tzaddik, Yosef HaTzadik, the tzaddik. It's a little bit of, comfort to know that. So that's what happens with Yosef. We were not together this year in the previous parashiot about the life of Yaakov Avinu and his children, but we know that with the few challenges, Yaakov built a house of how many children? He had 12 boys and 1 girl. Not an easy task, especially when you have 4 wives. And we will see, it wasn't simple, and it reflected in the relationship that evolved among these siblings. So last week, Parasha ended telling us the Toladot, the descendants of Esav, the twin of Yaakov. It's kind of the Torah is after we were told about Yaakov and Esav and their different journeys, and the Torah ends with Esav's lives and descendants just to leave him on the side. And from this moment, the Torah is going to focus till the end of the Varim only on the descendants of Yaakov. Yaakov is the one that is going to continue the legacy of Yitzchak and Avraham Avinu, is the one that is going to enjoy the berachot that were given to Abraham, to Yitzchak, and then to Yaakov. And one bracha we know that there were 2 brachot mainly. You remember what are the 2 brachot that they received, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? One is the land, Eretz Israel. Eretz Israel, I'm going to give it to you from the moment that Abraham receives the first communication with Hashem is about Lech Lecha El Haaretz Asher Areka, to the land that I'm going to show to you. Kind of seems that the mission of Abraham is absolutely connected to Eretz Israel, but is like a legacy. It's a zechut, and it's not something that is happening in their days. We're going to get Eretz Israel, but not yet. So perhaps from today, and the second bracha is brachat abanim, that you're going to have descendants. Am Israel is Am Israel and Eretz Israel, absolutely connected to each other. So what we're going to see from today is that yes, Yaakov is getting the bracha of Eretz Israel, but it's not so simple. It's not going to happen yet. Do you remember what Abraham was told on that prophecy, on that dream that he had in Berit Ben Abetarim, when he had to take animals and cut them into pieces, and Hashem is giving him a prophecy about Abraham's descendants. Even before he has children, Hashem is telling him, I always repeat this, Yadoa teda ki ger yeh zaracha be'eretz lo lahem, va'avadum ve'inum otam 400 shana. Before you have your children, Hashem is already telling you, your children, your descendants are going to be slaves in a land that does not be them. So it's that prophecy, that I would say gray cloud is on top of the heads of Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and it seems that the events that are going to unfold are going to take Bnei Israel, the children of Yaakov, to Egypt. And we know that's how the book of Bereshit ends, with Yaakov and his children coming to Egypt. And how do we begin the book of Shemot? Ele Shemot Bnei Israel, Vayakom Melech Hadash Asher Lo Yada et Yosef. And here is this king that didn't know Yosef, and etc., etc. We start the slavery. Okay, let's go inside. So just to tell you in few sentences what happens in our parasha, because we're not going to have the time to go through it all. It starts telling us what are the toladot, the descendants, the events that unfold after Yaakov. And the Torah tells us Yaakov loved especially who? Yosef. And Yosef and his brothers don't get along so well. There is a lot of rivalry, jealousy, Yosef shows off in front of them, tells them about his dreams of greatness. Yes, Yaakov also gives Yosef a special gift. At the end, they really hate him. What do they end up doing? They sell Yosef. And in that way, Yosef ends up in Egypt as a slave. In Egypt, he's a slave, but he is lucky enough to fall into a good house, a very good house of Potiphar. And there he gets a privileged position. Everything seems to be great for Yosef until what? His wife, this is the first case of sexual harassment in the Torah, but a woman against a man, not the opposite. She harasses him, she wants him to be with her. At the end, he has to run away from her. He leaves his clothing with her, and then she screams, she accuses him, and he is put into jail. We're going to see the details later. And he goes into jail, even in a worse place where he was before. He thinks that he's forgotten, but then Hashem sends two very important people to jail, to ministers, Sarah Ofim and Sarah Mashkim, the baker and the butler. And what happens to them in jail? While they are there in a very pretty depressing position. One day Yosef sees them like with their head down. What's with you? What happened to you? And then they say, we had a dream. We dreamt a dream. They tell Yosef his dream. Yosef gives the interpretation of their dream to both of them. And at the end, one of them, Yosef tells, Paro is going to forgive you. You're going to come back to Paro's palace to work with him. And I have only one request for you. Please remember me and tell Paro that I'm here falsely accused. I didn't do anything. Please make Paro bring me back to freedom. And that's how our parasha ends. What is the last pasuk, the last sentence of the parasha? If you want to see at the end of it, the last pasuk says, we are in Parashat Vayeshev, and the last pasuk is on page 220. 220 is the last pasuk. It says here, Ken, Velo zachar Sarah mashkim et Yosef vayishkachehu. When we thought that Yosef is about to get this second chance, thanks to the fact that he interpreted the dream of this Sar, of this Chamberlain, yet, pasuk 23, yet the Chamberlain of the cupbearers did not remember Yosef, but he forgot him. Yosef was in jail. You know, you are an Hebrew, a slave. Nobody knows you. A stranger in a land that you don't even know the culture, the language, and you are put in a pit, a dungeon, a jail down there. Who will remember you? Who will take you out? Like you are totally hopeless. But then suddenly you see an opportunity. You see these two men that need a little bit of relief by you helping them to understand their dreams. And then you put all your hopes on the fact that they will remember you. Please tell them that I am. Oh, thank you, Hashem. Finally, you gave me an opportunity. Please tell Paro, tell him that I'm here falsely accused. But how is the Torah telling us at the end? He does not remember Yosef and he forgets him. Kind of, even in a proactive way, he does not want to remember Yosef. He does not want to help Yosef. We're going to talk more about it. I just wanted you to have a picture of what happens in our parasha. There is another important subject in the parasha, in the middle, that happens with another brother of Yosef, Yehuda. After the brothers sell Yosef and Yosef is going down to Egypt, the Torah moves the camera to Yehuda. Yehuda is living in a different area. He took distance from his brothers. It could be because of all this crisis. And there, Yehuda, the Torah tells us he had 3 children, 3 boys. The oldest one, you know what? That wasn't the order. You know what? I'm not going to speak about Yehuda now. But you know that there is something with Yehuda. If we have time, I will speak about Yehuda. But whoever remembers, do you remember the story with Yehuda and Tamar? You don't remember? Oh, I have to tell the story. It's very juicy. You will like it. But we leave it for later. And if we don't have the time, I owe it to you for next week. Let's go to Yosef. So let's start the parasha. We're going to go inside the psukim at the beginning. We'll see how much psychology the Torah presents to us, even in a very subtle way. I start on page 199, Parashat Vayeshev, Perek, chapter 37, Lamed Zayin, Pasuk Aleph 1. וישב יעקב בארץ מגורי אביו בארץ כנען, אלה תולדות יעקב, יוסף בן 17 שנה, היה רואה את אחיו בצאן, והוא נער את בני בלהה ואת בני זלפה, נשי אביו. Yaakov settled in the land of his father's sojournings, in the land of Canaan. These are the chronicles of Yaakov. Yosef, at the age of 17 years, was a shepherd with his brothers by the flock. But he was a youth with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and Yosef would bring evil reports about them to their father. I continue one more pasuk in English. Now Israel loved Yosef more than all his sons, since he was a child of his old age, and he made him a fine woolen tunic. I continue one more. His brothers saw that it was he whom their father loved most of all his brothers, so they hated him, and they could not speak to him peaceably. Let's continue. Yosef dreamt a dream, which he told to his brothers, and they hated him even more. He said to them, "Hear, if you please, this dream which I dreamt. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the middle of the field, when behold, my sheaf arose and also remained standing. Then behold, your sheaves gathered around and bowed down to my sheaf." His brothers said to him, "Would you then reign over us? Would you then dominate us?" And they hated him even more because of his dreams and because of his talk. He dreamt another dream and related it to his brother. And he said, "Look, I dreamt another dream. Behold, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me." And he related it to his father and to his brothers. His father scolded him and said to him, "What is this dream that you have dreamt? Are we to come, I and your mother and your brothers, to bow down to you to the ground?" So his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. So we read few psukim that give us when you go to a show and they open the curtains, so they give us the background of what's happening among these siblings in Yaakov's family. So I want you to tell me, what do you know about Yosef until now? What do we know about him? Dreams. He was his dad's favorite. What else? He has nevuah. Let's see, what does it mean if he has nevuah? You refer to his dreams, right? Okay. He wasn't so humble. What do you mean by that? He showed off. He showed off a little bit. But what can you do? He had these dreams. He dreamt the dreams. Are you in control of what you dream? Oh, you are in control of what you say. Imagine I dream one day that, I don't know, everybody in my house become my slaves. What a terrible dream. And I'm going to tell them that. Or you dream that your husband is the one in charge now from cleaning the house every day. Will you tell him that? You will not say that. Like, some dreams you don't have to say, to tell to the other. They don't, especially if they don't make them feel good. So you say he was showing off because yes, he dreamed the dreams, but you could just be a little bit quiet about them, especially because there were already tensions. It's not something new that he knows. So let's go from the beginning. How old was Yosef? What do we know? Yosef was 17. What developmental age is that? What is 17? Is adults, is children, what is that? Teenagers. Okay, so we know. Yosef is a teenager, 17 years old. What else do we know about him? היה רואה את אחיו בצאן. He used to, how is it translated here? A shepherd with his brothers by the flock. The Mefarshim actually say that he was kind of manipulating his brothers. It's not actually literal, the fact that he was ro'eh et echav. Now, what does it mean that he was a nar, or he was a youth? Yes, according to Rashi, when the Torah tells me that Yosef was a nar, the Torah is not specifically speaking about his age, that he was a teenager. The Torah is telling me, according to Rashi, that he was very much in love with himself. Looking in the mirror, perhaps he was handsome, I suppose he was. We know that he was, we will see it later. He was very handsome, but he entertained himself in front of the mirror, looking at himself. He was full of himself, I would say. Really, if you want to describe how was Yosef, he was full of himself. Sforno, I don't have it with me. Whoever has the opportunity at home, or even you can go to Safari and see, it gives us a very interesting interpretation. He says, the fact that the Torah tells me that he was a nar, that it was a teenager, is in order to explain to us why Yosef was acting in that way. Because come on, if you know that your brothers don't exactly sympathize you, they're not so much your friends, don't come and tell them the dreams that you have against them. Don't be the whole time telling your father negative things about them. You know, try to bring a little bit of shalom into the house. Try to find harmony. But Sforno tells us, the Torah tells that Yosef was nar. Nar means to be a teenager. What characterizes a teenager? What do we know about adolescence? Immaturity, in what level immaturity, in what sense? He doesn't think through, selfish. Let's go a little bit more to the science level. Neuroscience, I don't know who has teenagers here. I don't have any more like that. I'm going to have grandchildren, teenagers, so that's good for me to remember. So since the invention of MRIs, already, I would say even 30 years ago, they were able to see the brain. Once you see the brain, you're able to compare the brain of a 5 years old, a 17 years old, of a 30 years old, of a 40 years old. So you see the differences. They didn't know there are differences. They thought that, okay, you are a child until 5 years old. After you are 7, you are already with your fully developed brain. But now they realize that the frontal cortex, this part of the brain, that is the part responsible for decision making, that is the part that is able, that gives you the ability to see the consequences of your actions, is not developed yet until, I would say, until the late 20s. By the way, it's a very hopeful message. It's a very good message because, and Baruch Hashem, I can tell you that you can see that. You can see that, Be'ezrat Hashem, even when you go through challenges with a teenager, it's a very hopeful message to know it's its brain. That's going to change. It's going to evolve. Of course, maintaining a good relationship, discipline, etc., all what we have to do with teenagers. But that's a good thing to know, that it's a question of maturity, of immaturity, actually. That with time, they're going to think twice. That is not so convenient to drive 120 miles per hour after you drank 2 cups of alcohol. That can be very dangerous, because at that moment they're still using more the amygdala than this part of the brain, and the amygdala makes you decide more based on your emotions. You want the excitement, you want the action. So Yosef is telling us Seforno is a teenager. That's why the Torah is telling us he's nar. And that's why he's acting in this way, because he's not thinking it through. He's not thinking that bringing these reports to his father. I didn't say that the Torah is also telling us that he used to speak Lashon Hara about his brothers. Different opinions, if he spoke bad about the children of the servant wives, or if he spoke bad about the other brothers that were not treating them well, but it doesn't matter. Yosef used to be telling that, Dad, you know what they did today? He used to go with them to work during the day and then come and tell Dad, I'm going to tell you what Reuben did today. I'm going to tell you what Gad and Shimon were fighting. I'm going to tell you what they ate. They were not eating kosher. They didn't check the ashgacha. They did this. They did that. So if you think ahead, you know that all these comments are not going to bring anything good. If you think ahead, you're not going to tell your dreams that are going to make them really hate you. What do you think to yourself? Who do you think you are? So this is one explanation. Now, so we have here, how many reasons for the brothers to hate Yosef? We see that he used to speak bad about them, that he used to tell his dreams, but before that, the main one, look at Pasuk Gimel, the third Pasuk. Now Israel loved Yosef more than all his sons since he was a child of his old age. Ben Zekunim hu lo. Now this translation is already translating Ben Zekunim as the child of his old age. Not necessarily, not all the Mefarshim will say that this means the child of his old age. Who was the youngest child? Binyamin. And most of Yosef was pretty much at the same age of his brothers, because different mothers, they had them together. Ben Zekunim could be that he was the one that sat with Yosef to study Torah. It was very normal for families to send all the children to work and leave one at home to serve the parents, to study with them, to be near them. It could be that that's the reason for Yosef Ben Zekunim. What else? What is different between Yosef and his brothers? What is different? Yosef is an orphan. As the father, you look at your child that lost his dad. For sure, you get full of compassion. So it could make you treat him differently. Could it be the reason why Yosef treated Yosef with a preferential attention? Could be that. We don't know. Could be also that Yosef is the son of Rachel. Who is Rachel? His beloved wife. According to the original plan that Yaakov had in his mind, Yaakov wanted to marry Rachel, and that's it. Rachel, that was his love. And now Rachel is not there, but they have her children. So might it be, could it be that is what makes Yaakov show favoritism to this Yosef, to this child? And there are two brothers, Yosef and Binyamin. How is when Yaakov looks at Binyamin? Is he also his favorite? We will see later on that when he sends the boys to Egypt to look for food, he doesn't send Binyamin. He keeps Binyamin with him. Perhaps he's also protecting him. But anyways, if I compare between Yosef and Binyamin, perhaps Binyamin is going to bring sad memories to Yaakov. Every time I look at you, Binyamin, I remember that when you came to the world, Rachel died. Rachel died having Binyamin. So it could be that that's why Yosef is the one that stays as the Ben Zekunim, the favorite one of Yaakov. So what do we think about this? That the Torah is telling us, the Israel ahav et Yosef mikol banav. That he loves Yosef more than anyone else. What do you think about this? You shouldn't have shown it. Is it normal to have a favorite child? Okay, let me ask it differently. Do you have a favorite child? Of course, everybody's going to say no. You know that research shows, and I don't know exactly how they could prove the truth, around the 70% of parents do have a favorite child. How can you have a favorite child? Listen, don't think about yourself. You don't have a favorite child, but ladies, whoever has a favorite child. How can you get to love one child more than the others? What? A child that is easier. What else? The stage, the developmental stage. I love babies, or I get along with teenagers, or I love boys, or I love girls, or I have 8. You have 8 girls and only 1 boy. That's me. That's my family. Do you love the same this boy than these 8 girls, or the opposite, or what else could be?
It can be amazing. It can be helpful.
It can be a very easygoing, a boy that a child that doesn't give you any problem. It's so easy to raise this child. Anything you ask is there to do it. It's responsible. It's clean. It's the perfect child. Oh, or it could be that this child needs you more. For example, in this case, he lost his mom. In this case, because he lost his mom. What if the child has some learning disabilities or some health problems? Sometimes this compassion that a parent feels for the child also is going to make him feel a special attachment to this child. So it's not so far from reality that parents will feel certain preference for a child. It can be, we are humans, it can be personality traits. Like he has exactly my personality, and perhaps that's why I don't like him, because I don't like these traits on myself. Perhaps he has the traits that I would love to. Perhaps it's like my husband that I love. It could be so many things. The question here is, what was wrong? Because Chachamim in the Talmud, they say, because a tunic, that cloth that cost, let's say, 20 sela, 20 coins, 20 shekels, $20, Bnei Israel yardu Mitzrayma. That tunic made that we ended up as slaves in Egypt. Look what you did, Yaakov, with this gesture of you have 12 children and you buy one of them a special tunic. And this tunic is very specific, has colors, and the colors are very, very noticeable. And everybody's going to see them. And every time that Yosef wakes up in the morning, he comes, what for breakfast? And he walks around with that tunic that has these colors and it's so special. It's not something that you gave him a gift and he put on the drawer. You gave him a gift that he's wearing it in front of everyone. So what was wrong with Yaakov? Showing it. And when the Torah is bringing it here, is for us to learn how careful we parents need to be in the way we relate to our children. It doesn't matter that you love girls more than boys. It doesn't matter that you enjoy playing soccer with your son and with the girls you get bored. It doesn't matter that you love this child because you both share the attraction to computers. It doesn't matter what it is. You have to be extremely careful in the way you relate to your children. Now, how do we do that? How do we do that not to show to our children that I'm more attached to one of them, that I am, it really happens, I have a conversation, like I try to speak with this child, doesn't answer back. What do we have to do? What advices do you have for parents not to show favoritism to their children? How do you do that? No, but I want you to think. I want you to think. Treat them equally. How? How can I treat equally my 2 kids if one needs me to take him to therapy every day and the other one doesn't need it? Okay, so you're speaking about time. This is a very important advice. Make time for each one of your children every day, even if it is 15 minutes. That's what the advice. 15 minutes. In that way, you are covering, you are making sure that you are giving some personal attention. You will have to make an effort to communicate with this child in the ways that that child needs. Now, something important to know, that sometimes you don't show favoritism and your children will still think that you love one more than the other. Oh, she hates me. She took him, I don't know, to the eye doctor yesterday and today, and he got a lollipop and he got a band-aid with the whatever, the Ninja Turtles, whatever it is. So children will feel that. So what do we answer them when they say, but why do you like her more than me? Why do you give him more than me? What do you answer? It's important to express, mommy, daddy loves all of you the same. You know, I have two eyes. Can I love one eye more than the other? Can I love one hand more than the other? It's important to say it all the time. It's important to say, it doesn't mean you are going to give them all the same, because you're not going to give all of your children glasses when one needs glasses. You're not going to take all of your children to I don't know, to physical therapy if only one needs it. Or a tutor. Sometimes even a tutor is a personal special attention that child is getting, and the other one gets jealous. But you need to be very much aware and speak about that with your children. And telling them and repeat it, mommy loves all of you the same. And if you are praising this one, I always think that parents, I was never good at this, but I think whoever can do that, if you can have a journal of your parenting behavior, would be so good. Like, for example, you write, today I spent 3 hours with Avi. It was amazing. I took him to the supermarket because he didn't go to school. Then you have to try to make up for the other children, to make up to the other children and try to give them some attention to them. Or I bought him this ice cream tomorrow, I have to make a time to take the other one. Or I am praising him all the time because he's so good at basketball. I need to find something that my other son or my other daughter is good at. I want to have a reason to praise them as well. So sometimes parenting is about a lot of planning. It doesn't have to be, we cannot leave our parenting style to our intuition, to the spontaneous things that come out of our hearts. We need to plan and we need to be fair, not equal, fair. You can never be equal. Okay, so this is what happens here. All these events are causing to what we see on Pasuk Dalet 4 on page 201. His brothers saw that it was he whom their father loved most of all his brothers, so they hated him and they could not speak to him peaceably. You know, in the Torah, we have next to the mitzvah, lo tisna et achicha bilbavcha, do not hate your brother. We have next to it the mitzvah, ocheach tochiach et amitecha, which means, what is ocheach tochiach et amitecha? When you see somebody, your friend, a person that you have a relationship, acting in a wrong way, doing something wrong, ocheach tochiach. According to the Torah, we have to try to tell them, to reprimand them, to try to open their eyes. The way you are acting is wrong. I don't know, you 3 times you went to Middle Neck in the area of the pizzeria, etc., and you saw your friend 3 times, and 3 times she didn't even say hi to you. She looked to the other side. So what do? You continue with life and keep that resentment growing, or you take the phone and you say, hey, everything okay? You know, I don't know. I saw you and I tried to say hi, but you didn't give me the opportunity. I want to know that you are okay about it because that hurts me. You kind of try to open back the channels of communication because you don't want the hatred to develop. What happens here, and the Torah is so careful with the words, it says they hated him. The level of hatred was so high that they could not speak to him peaceably. When you cannot talk to the other, when there is no conversation, when there is no communication, the hatred is in a very high level. And now we have the dreams. And then we know that the dreams make them also be very upset. And go to page 203. One day, now his brothers went to pasture their father's flocks in Shechem. And Israel said to Yosef, your brothers are pasturing in Shechem, are they not? Come, I will send you to them. he said to him, here I am. And he said to him, go now, look into the welfare of your brothers and the welfare of the flock, and bring me back word. So he sent him from the depth of Hebron, and he arrived at Shechem. So the brothers are not coming back on time or whatever it is. Yaakov sent Yosef, I want you to go and check on your brothers. How are they doing? There is an interesting midrash that I didn't know before I read this time, that later on, when Yosef disappears from Yaakov and Yaakov is mourning for him, Yaakov kept torturing himself. How did I send him to check on his brothers? Like Yaakov knew that what? That they hate him. Yaakov saw what's happening at home. How did I send him to check on them? And what was Yosef's answer? Hineni, here I am, ready to go. Some say that Yaakov knew exactly what was happening, and Yaakov was trying to create an opportunity for them to communicate, to make peace among themselves. Or perhaps he didn't know how bad things were. That, can you imagine? Is it possible to think that your own children are going to do what they did to your own other child? So Yaakov didn't think things are so bad. So what happens here? Yosef doesn't find them. There is a man that tells him, what are you looking for? Your brothers? Oh, they're not here. They went to the other side. We see a little bit here the hand of Hashem, how Hashem is guiding Yosef to go after them. And then on Pasuk 18, they saw him from afar, and when he had not yet approached them, they conspired against him to kill him. And they said to one another, look, that dreamer is coming. So now come and let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits. And we will say, a wild beast devoured him. Then we shall see what will become of his dreams. So they want to throw him to the pit in order to what to do with the pit. What will happen to Yosef if they throw him to the pit? Will die. Like the first intention of them is to kill Yosef. They want to kill him. Here, they conspired against him to kill him. Reuben heard. Who is Reuben? The Bechor, the oldest one. Reuben heard, and he rescued him from their hand, and he said, we will not strike him mortally. And Reuben said to them, shed no blood. Throw him to this pit in the wilderness, but lay not hand on him, intending to rescue him from their hand to return him to his father. And so it was. When Yosef came to his brothers, they stripped Yosef of his tunic, that symbolic item that was bothering them so much, the fine woolen tunic that was on him. Then they took him and cast him into the pit. The pit was empty, no water was in it. So at the beginning, they wanted to kill him and throw him, or throw him to a pit where he would die. When Reuben intervenes, they're throwing it to a pit, and Reuben has an intention to do what? To take him back. But what do? They throw him there, and it's a very interesting sentence it's here that says the Torah, the pit was empty, no water was in it. What does it mean that there was no water? If a pit is a well, okay, what does it mean that there was no water? If there would be water, what happens? It would die. It would drown, right? So there is no water. But Rashi tells us something. There was no water, but water was there. Nachashim ve'akravim. There were serpents and scorpions, which could have been even worse. It could have been mortal. But Hashem intervenes the same way when Daniel is thrown to the place with wild animals. They don't touch it. They don't touch Yosef, and Yosef is intact. Now, there is a very beautiful interpretation, symbolic interpretation. You know, the Torah gives us the possibility to learn the pshat, the literal meaning of the thing, but to go deeper and to get ideas. It's like, you know, when you take a diamond, it doesn't, you look it from different angles and you see the light with different colors, right? So what is the Torah telling me, or what are Chamim telling us when they say there was no water, but there was Nachashim and Akravim, there was serpents and scorpions? They're giving us a very beautiful message here. They say, there are not empty spaces. Usually, when the pit is not with water, it's going to get filled with wild animals. Same thing they say with our mind, with our brain, with your home, with your values. If you don't fill them with good values, it's not going to stay empty. It's going to get ideas, values that are not exactly the best. I always think, imagine at home, you have a shelf. I remember in my kitchen, I have like a small, I don't know if it's a window that connects between a hallway and the kitchen. It has a shelf there. Every time it got filled with things, people would come, put their keys, put their papers, and I hated it. That shelf was always full with the things that I didn't like. So it was empty, so it got filled with things I didn't want. Until I thought about it, I went and I bought 3 little, like plants or vases, and I put them there. Once you put something, the space is not empty for others to fill it with whatever they want. Sometimes we need to pay attention to that. Like time, boredom. If I take care of fill my time with good things, with going to a shiur, with doing chesed, with helping a friend, with cooking for somebody that gave birth, my time is going to be well, used. But if I don't do anything, what will I end up doing? Social media, gossip, looking what others have, what others did, movies, things that are not going to bring anything good with my mind. Same thing with our children. That's why it's so important to help them to build their leisure time in a good way, to learn to fill it with good quality things. Okay, so what happens here? I'm not going to enter into all the details. There is a lot of mefarshim saying who sold Yosef, what happened. But on Pasuk 25, very terrible to see. What do they do after they throw him to the pit? What these brothers do? They sit to eat food. They sit to eat food. Now, the Torah doesn't tell us what happened, but later on, when Yosef speaks to them, he tells them, when I was screaming for my life, like imagine you are eating your sandwich and you're here listening to your brother, please, 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 take me out, I'm scared. Please, sorry for what I did. And then perhaps they put some music. They're eating. How can you eat? How can you eat when your brother is suffering? In general, for all of us, for every circumstance, how can we live when somebody else is having a difficult time next to you? Do something. Care for others. So they said to eat, and then Yehuda is the one that gives the advice, and they sell him. I'm going to say the last words say, then they brought Yosef to Egypt. Again, Midianim, Ishmaelim, some Mefarshim say it's the same people. Some say that Yosef was sold several times. Some say that they put it on the pit and the brothers didn't sell him. A caravan of Midianites passed by and they heard the screaming. And while they were there eating and enjoying themselves, they kidnapped Yosef and they took him to Egypt. And then they didn't say, doesn't matter. Yosef ends up to Egypt. Now in Pasuk 29, Reuben was planning to save Yosef. When Reuben returned to the pit, and behold, Yosef was not in the pit. So he rent his garments, returning to his brother, the boy is gone, and where can I go? What did they do now? They have to bring an explanation to the father. They took Yosef's tunic, slaughtered a goatling, dipped the tunic in blood. They dispatched the fine woolen tunic and they brought it to their father and said, we found this. Identify, if you please. Is it your son's tunic or not? He recognized it and he said, my son's tunic, a savage beast devoured him. Yosef has surely been torn to bits. Then Yaakov rent his garments and placed sackcloth on his loins. He mourned for his son many days. All his sons and all his daughters arose to comfort him, but he refused to comfort himself and said, for I will go down to the grave mourning for my son. And his father bewailed him. Now the Midianites have sold into Egypt to Potiphar, a courtier to Paro, a chamberlain of the butchers. Yosef is brought down to Egypt. Yaakov does not find comfort. Chachamim tell us that mourning does not end when the person is alive. Like whenever somebody, God forbid, passes away, the nature, the way Hashem created us, is that we have a limit to our mourning time. Like we have times in the halakha, right? Mourn a month or a year or in a level that is natural, that the way Hashem created us. But Yosef didn't die. So yes, Yaakov couldn't make closure. Like he says, an animal devoured him, but deep inside, Yaakov did not really believe this. Now we're going to skip. Now there is a chapter speaking about Yehuda and Tamar. And we're going to continue to see on the 10, 15 minutes that we have left, what happens to Yosef. So Yosef is brought on page 213, Perek Lamed Tet 39, Pasuk Aleph, and Yosef had been brought down to Egypt. Potiphar, a courtier of Paro, the chamberlain of the butchers, a prominent Egyptian, purchased him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. Look at Pasuk 2, how comforting it is to read. Hashem was with Yosef, and he became a successful man. And he remained in the house of his Egyptian master. His master perceived that Hashem was with him, and whatever he did, Hashem made succeed in his hand. Yosef found favor in his eyes, and he attended him. He appointed him over his household, and whatever he had, he placed in his custody. So, with all the terrible things that happened to Yosef, you know, Yosef is sold into slavery in Egypt. Have you seen movies on the slavery in America before the Civil War? Have you seen what it meant to be a slave? Have you seen what is the value of your life, what it means to be a slave? There is no value. Have you seen the differences between masters that treated their slaves good and masters that were absolutely sadist and they did not care at all, and they were permanently, you know, torturing and treating them badly. So even when you are a slave, you need to have a little bit of good luck. It can be the end of it, or it can be at least a decent life as a slave. So we see that the Kadosh Baruch Hu is taking care of Yosef with the Isurim, with the problem. Also, we didn't stop to see it. It's beautiful the how Chachamim tell us. The Torah says that these merchanders that were taking Yosef, what were they carrying in their animals? You know what were they selling? They were selling spices with good aromatic, with good aroma, aromatic spices. So Rashi, based on the Midrash, tells us that the Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted Yosef to have, at least while they were taking him, a nice experience, at least while he was smelling. And it's so incredible. I always ask myself, like, he's suffering, they're selling him, who cares what is he smelling? What do you care? Like, how important is that? But you know what? It is. I always say this, and I remember when I was in Israel, the time my dad, my mom, when they were sick in the hospital, and you see the suffering and the pain and the treatments and all of that, but suddenly you see these people that come and play music before Shabbat and give you a good moment before Shabbat, or this nurse that is so kind and brings you a smile and makes you laugh, or this Baalei Chesed, people that bring, and you realize these are the spices. But even when you are suffering, when everything is difficult, these little good moments are going to help you. So they could have been carrying with them bad, dirty things, but Yosef is at least brought to Egypt with the good smell that are going to help her go through the journey. Also, he's lucky enough, he ends up in a house of the butler, sorry, not the butler, of, how is it called here? Sarat Abachim. Sarat Abachim was, what is the translation here? Um, mm, mm, mm. A courtier of Paro, chamberlain of the butchers. Yes, he was the executioner. He was the one in charge of, of condemning people, but he had a good position. And it happens to be that he was a good person. Not only that he was a good person, he was very smart and he was able to perceive that this slave that he bought, Yosef, is actually bringing him a lot of beracha, of success. Wow, since I brought Yosef, my business is flourishing. Everything I do is better. Like when I give certain assignment to Yosef, things are done very well. When I give to another slave, they're not so successful. So he appreciates Yosef, not only appreciates him, he leaves in his hands everything that he owns. But the food, like the food is not in charge. You know, when you have a good person working for you at home and you trust the person so much that you give her the key of your house, is because you appreciate her job, her loyalty, etc. So Yosef is appreciated. And what happens now? As I told you, look on Pasuk, before Pasuk 7, what is the sentence that comes here? Now Yosef was handsome of form and handsome of appearance. What does it mean that Yosef was handsome of form and handsome of appearance? What does it mean? Yosef was very handsome. Why is the Torah telling me this now? Like Yosef was introduced at the beginning of the parasha. We heard that he was 17 years old. Rashid told me that he was playing with his hair, but I didn't see that in the pasuk that Yosef was handsome. Why is the Torah telling me now that Yosef was handsome? Why? Okay, very good. Most of the Mefarshim will say, the Torah is telling me now that he was handsome, to tell him this caused him problem. By the way, every time that beauty is mentioned in the Torah is the beginning of problem. Trouble is coming. Like we appreciate beauty, but beauty, you can bring a lot of problems. Like it's a challenge. It's a challenge that you need to learn how to deal with it. The fact that Joseph was very handsome made Potiphar's wife want him all the time. And look what it says here. And so it was but he had, after these things, his master's wife cast her eyes upon Yosef and she said, lie with me. But he adamantly refused. He said to his master's wife, look, with me here, my master concerned himself but about nothing in the house. He trusts me. He really trusts me. And whatever he placed in my custody. There is no one greater in this house than I. And he has denied me nothing but you. The only thing I cannot touch, like I really can enjoy everything that you have in the house. Again, Joseph is a slave, but he's a slave in a good position, in a good house, for sure, good food, good nutrition, good treatment. But I cannot, he had denied me nothing but you, since you are his wife. How then can I perpetrate this great evil and have sinned against God? So it was, just as she coaxed Joseph day after day. So he would not listen to her, to lie beside her, to be with her. And there was an opportune day when he entered the house to do his work. No man of the household staff being there in the house, that she caught hold of him by his garment, saying, lie with me. But he left his garment in her hand and he fled and went outside. When she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and fled outside, she called out to the men of her household and spoke to them, saying, look, he brought us a Hebrew man to sport with us. He came to lie with me, but I called out with a loud scream. And when he heard that I raised my voice and screamed, he left his garment beside me, fled and went outside. She kept his garment beside her until his master came home. Then she told him a similar account, saying, the Hebrew slave whom you brought to us came to me to sport with me. But it happened that when I raised my voice and screamed, he left his garment beside me and ran outside. And it was when his master heard his wife's word, which she spoke to him, saying, your slave did things like this to me, his anger flared up, and Joseph's master took him and placed him in the prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. and he remained there in prison. But we're so worried for Yosef, and the Torah is calming us down. Hashem was with Yosef. Hashem is with Yosef. And he endowed him with charisma, and he put his favor in the eyes of the prison warden. The prison warden placed all inmates of the prison in Yosef's custody, and everything that was done there, he would accomplish. The prison warden did not scrutinize anything that was in his charge, inasmuch as Hashem was with him. And whatever he did, Hashem made successful. Every time that the Torah says that they saw that Hashem was with him, Chachamim interpret it in two ways. Either that they saw his success, as I said with his master, or that he saw that everything that Yosef did, he would attribute it to Hashem. Is Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. Baruch Hashem. They saw something special in Yosef. Now, I'm going to stop here. I just want to give you, in the last 2 minutes, two different views. We always say, and the Chachamim mainly speak about Yosef HaTzadik as the man that was able to conquer his temptation. You are a slave, forgotten. There, you don't have family, you are a man. And you have this woman that if you answer to her request, for sure is going to take good care of you. You have your master that loves you, will have also loving you. You are going to have the best privileged position that you could dream as a slave. But he doesn't, and he is, like we could say, sometimes you say, Hashem, I did everything you wanted from me. I became Shomer Shabbat. I'm praying every day, and this is what's happening to me. Sometimes you see I'm behaving, and still things difficult happen to me. This is what happened to Yosef. He was strong, but his reward was to end up in jail. So this is how things seem for now. I always say when we study this parashiot, our problem is like we don't feel so much the climax and the tension because we know what's coming. But imagine we didn't know. We don't know what's coming next. What happened to Yosef? Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Yosef. You almost had it, but what a bad luck. We see the fortunes of Yosef, up and down, up and down. The favorite son, boom, in the pit, sold. But Potiphar is treating him well, but boom, again, his wife. That's the tension that we feel in Yosef's life. Now, it seems like this. Midrashim of Chazal, and with this I'm going to finish, give us a different view of Yosef. Yes, Yosef HaTzadik, the good boy, the tzaddik, but they say, Yosef was in Egypt, and he was sold to this house, and he was enjoying himself too much. And there is a midrash when the Torah is telling us that he was handsome before she, harasses him. The midrash says that Yosef started to feel too comfortable in this house with the Egyptian manners and the culture. And the Torah is telling us that he was beautiful because he started in this place. He started playing with his hair. It says here, as soon as he saw himself as a ruler, he began to eat and drink and curl his hair. Said the Holy One, blessed be he, your father is in mourning and you're playing with your hair. I'm going to bring Potiphar's wife against you immediately. Like Hashem sometimes sends us challenges to awaken us and to remind us where we're supposed to be. Why I like this midrash? Because it's very human. It doesn't show Yosef as a permanent tzaddik all the time the same. It was challenging. He was almost about to fail. But he has the opportunity to wake up, and we will see in jail what happens, and we will talk more next time about the process. I would call it the teshuvah of Yosef. How did we see Yosef at the beginning? As a young boy, arrogant, showing off, thinking of himself. We will see how he evolves and he becomes Yosef HaTzadik. Thank you and Shabbat Shalom.